Hello, everyone. It's me, Andrew. I'm here at Star Cottage Studio, which is, let me adjust this a little, which is the biggest project that we have done at Allegory Gallery so far. And so, yeah, it's been a busy day. I don't think it's ever really not a busy day. Over the weekend, though, we had some snow. I don't know if you all had snow where you are, but we had some pretty deep snow and a lot of ice. So yeah, so I guess we relaxed a little bit then because we weren't. I was gonna go to the studio, but it was just too snowy, and so I didn't do that. And then since the road conditions weren't great, I didn't go to Pittsburgh for my artist in residency position at Contemporary Crafts. So I kind of just hung at home and did some projects and at home this weekend. Today, though, it's a really beautiful day. It's super sunny, and some of the ice has been melting. Which has been a little bit startling because once in a while, the ice will melt and fall off the roof and crash to the ground. And it's very startling. I almost had an accident thinking somebody was trying to get in. So we've been pretty good. Hopefully, all of you have been good out there. We're a little bit later today than usual. And that's because my sister, Cynthia Thornton, was doing a demo in the Great Bead Extravaganza. Today is their takeover day. So if you missed that, you can always go over to the Great Bead Extravaganza. Let's see if there's a banner with that talk on it. Wow. Yeah, that wasn't super helpful. But anyway, so she was over in doing a demo on working with gouache. So I thought that was really fun. And, I don't like to overlap too much because I like I want everybody to be able to have the spotlight and not take away. So she did a gouache demo, which was really cool on black paper. So if you're curious about that, head on over to the Great Bead Extravaganza and you should be able to watch it on the replay. So that's pretty exciting. And then I was watching it too. So that's why I'm a little bit late today. I'm at around 6 o'clock today. And yeah, so there's a couple things that I wanted to go over. This morning we had a really lovely meeting with some of our friends who were going to be working out a deal. So on acquiring their pewter line. So it's going to be a big project. So yeah, it's a big project and we're super excited and we can't wait to share it with all of you out there. Over the next week or so, I'm probably beyond that, but I know definitely for the next week or so, we're going to be hustling our little tushies off, trying to make up some extra cash money so that we can secure the deal and lock it down, as they say. We've been moving a little bit of money around here and there, which there isn't much to move around at the moment because winter is the disasperation time, as I like to call it. It's just one of those things where you can work your hind end off and you still kind of barely just make even, break even. So it's not, after the holidays, there's a big slump of time. several months worth where everything kind of, and then so that's like we're at the tail end of the, so yeah, so we'll be doing a lot of different sales, and I've been working on kits all day, so we'll have new kits coming up soon. And yeah, we've got some couple of other cool things that we're working on to hopefully drum up some business and make some dollar bills so we can pay our friends and we can get them beads. Because the sooner we get them, the sooner we can share them with all of you out there. One of the really cool things is that we will own the molds of these beads. Um, we will be the only place that you'll be able to get them, unless unless they're a distributor of us, if we wholesale them. So, which I don't think we're going to get into right away, because we just have to figure out the logistics of having the line to begin with. But that's coming up pretty soon, so we're super excited about that. I see a couple people have tuned in. I see a Facebook user has tuned in. If you haven't had a chance, in the description, I want to say there's a thing that says StreamYard, and then you can always click on that, and it all it does is it gives StreamYard permission to know who you are, so that when you pop up, it will show your name, because I don't know who you are. Terry B says hello. Hi, Terry. Marianne says hello. Hey, Marianne. Emily's watching. Hey, Emily. How are you? Teresa's joining in. Howdy. Rebecca is watching. Hi, Rebecca. Sarah is. Sarah says, what are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about we're working on a deal to acquire a line of metal beads. So it's a very big project, and we're going to be doing a lot of fundraising over the next week. Yeah, so you'll see more about that once we officially sign our name to it. I don't like to say too much, just in case for some reason it doesn't come out, but it is something that we're working on and we're really excited about. And yeah, so that'll be awesome. And says, the pewter line sounds like a cool thing to get into. Can't wait to learn more. Yeah, we've been wanting to branch in that direction for a while now. And we've had some hiccups getting kind of established. If you didn't know, my family is Green Girl Studios. My sister, Cynthia Thornton, and her husband, Greg Ogden, they own that business. And so I've been working with them off and on for probably 17 years at least. And so it's been really cool to see that. And so we kind of wanted to do our own thing, not in a competing kind of way, but in a complementary kind of way. So this is a nice way to kind of make that happen, And so we'll be taking an existing line, but we'll eventually be growing it. And we've been working the past couple years on trying to get our own stuff launched, but with a pandemic and stuff, it makes it a little bit tricky. And then of course, when you have money, you have money, and when you don't have money, you don't have money. And so a lot of those things, it's a very expensive trial and error kind of system. So, but anyways, it looks like it's going full steam ahead. So you'll be seeing a lot of new stuff soon. We're super excited about that. Sarah asked, what kind of metal? So it'll be pewter, but the pewter will come in different platings. So we'll have a whole wide variety of different plated pewter. Lorraine says, hi, Andrew. William says, we are super excited. I am super excited, but I'm a little bit I don't want to say that I'm scared, but it is going to be a lot of work over the next week or so and beyond. So it's another little facet that we're adding to our gym. So I'm a little bit, there's a lot going on. So it always, this is a kind of, this is the, it's like the duck. It's calm on the surface, but underneath it's like frantically paddling like crazy. So that's what's happening under under the water. William says huge amounts of work and sweating the budget. Yeah, so William does most of the budgeting. And so I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And then he's like, he gets that look like he got thunderstruck, because I like to push it. And I think it's one of those things like, um, I think as we are, we're not getting younger. And I know that people are going to say, oh, age is just a number and blah, 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 blah. But I think it's always prudent to start thinking about things. And it's never too early to start thinking about those types of things. And so for us, we don't have regular jobs. So we are not going to be getting, like a 401k. Allegory Gallery doesn't have a 401k yet. So when it comes to retirement time, my retirement plans are pretty much working until the day I die. So so for us, while we're kind of upwardly mobile and still able to do it, I kind of feel like this is the time that we have to invest in the business as much as possible, so that so that later on, when we're not as spry and youthful, we can have something to fall back on. And I think it's maybe not something that people like to think about. But like my parents, they're getting older, and so we're starting to see and experience a lot of that now. If you've had older or dealing with older parents, and I hate to say dealing because that sounds like it's like a task, um, but if you're going through that, then you know that there's a lot of stuff that you may have not have thought about before, but are now thinking about. Um, and then also, when I was going to Touchstone over the summer, it's in a off, outside of a town called Farmington, which is about an hour south of us. So, and it's very rural, to go down that way. And it's only 20 or 30 miles away, but it takes an hour because the roads are so twisty turny. Um, but the thing is there's only one radio station that would come in my car, at least that had music that I kind of liked. And so in the mornings, there was a whole hour of this guy talking about retirement. And so I've been thinking about that. Um, and it's probably a long-term thing. I don't anticipate us retiring anytime soon, but like I said, we're in the accumulation phase, as they say on retirement radio. And so we got to make as much money now so that when it comes to the other phase of life, then we have something to work with, and it's not disasperation station style. So let's see. Well, Marianne says you like to raise William's anxiety level. Well, kind of. I think that's one of those things where um, you know, nothing risked, nothing gained, right? So if we don't risk it, now, then we don't really have anything later on. There is a kind of the story of Allegory Gallery is that when, we had, I'll scroll back way far back. When I was growing up in Florida, there was a little shop and they were really kind to me. The owner of the store kind of knew that I didn't have a lot of money. So she would invent little tasks for me to help out. And she would sometimes sell my paintings and my little sculptures, my little polymer clay sculptures. And so she gave me an opportunity to make a little bit of extra money so that I could afford craft supplies and buy stuff, of course, from her store. So that kind of put a seed in my mind because I saw how important that shop was to me and also to the community. It was a wonderful place where the community gathered and people, it was really a gathering point. So it always stuck in my mind that we wanted to do something that would build a community. Um, I'm not a person of power and influence. I'm not saving lives, and I'm not writing legislation that will prevent human atrocities and right social wrongs. So for me, I've always had this idea that creativity was the thing that helped me overcome a lot of adversity and hardships in my life. So, so you kind of have to use what you have. And so I've been lucky enough to have that. So in my way, I feel like, there's a lot of people who they have a job, they clock into their job and they do their job and then they clock out and then they do fun stuff. And that's perfectly fine. And sometimes I fantasize about that like real hard. I was like, well, what would be so cool is if I had a desk job that all I had to do is, and then you get like paid vacation days and stuff. I think about that sometimes. But really, for me, I think what brings me the most joy is to live in alignment with my purpose and kind of calling. So I feel as though my calling in life as an artist and as a human being is to help people tell their stories and um, embrace their self-expression. There's a power in stories, so I want those to empower people to be able to tell those stories and have a platform to be able to do that. So when we started the store, it all kind of happened very happenstance. When I had cancer, I had skin cancer that was pretty aggressive. And so there was after the surgery, because I didn't have to go through chemo or radiation, but I had to go through a pretty aggressive surgery where they had to remove a lot of the margins. So they ended up having to take off half a square foot of skin, which is, they took off about this much on my side. So, and they stapled everything together. So it made it really hard to sleep. And so, because every time you move, then the staples would pull, and it was extremely painful. Um, and so there were nights when, like, I couldn't sleep, and so I would just lay there. And William, he couldn't even get in the bed because every time he got in the bed, it would move the bed around and pull the staples. Um, so he kind of laid on the ground on the floor next to the bed, and we made a little nest. And so there were times when I couldn't sleep, but I was super tired. So we would kind of start talking about things, and we started talking about things that we wanted to do one day. And I call it the dreaming out loud because it was very dreamlike in some ways. And William told me stories about how he would play store with his cousins and his brother. They had an old desk, and they would have money in the different drawers. And he talked about one day opening a store with one of his friends, and I had told him about this shop that I used to go to as a teenager, and so we passed the time until we both kind of fell asleep, dreaming out loud and thinking about all the things we would like to do one day, and then fast forward a couple months, maybe it was a year later. It was a it was a after this because we paid off my medical bills, which is another conversation, which was nightmare time. But thankfully, through the help of our community and support system, we were able to get the majority of that paid off, and then we took what little money we had left over and paid that off. And around the same time, there was something happening down the street. We didn't really know what was going on, but we could see that they were like doing stuff to the building and building a ramp and doing stuff, and we're like, what are they doing? And then we saw a banner that they put out that said Chinese eatery. Now, I talk about how Ligonier is small. It was 1,500 people. But where we used to live before Ligonier is in a town called outside of a town, not even in the town, called Bolivar. And if you think Ligonier is small, Bolivar is even smaller. So that's one of those places where if you go like this, you miss it. You blink and you miss it. That's exactly what we were. We were like, what's happening here? So anyway, we saw the sign and we emailed them and said, hey, let us know when you open, and we'll come down and check it out and help. The rising tide raises all boats kind of philosophy. And at that time, my blog was kind of successful, so I was like, I can write about your business on my blog and help promote the business. And so the day that we paid off my medical bills and we put the final payment in, and we kind of were celebrating, and they emailed us, and it was really late at night, and they said, we're opening tomorrow. Please come if you can. And so we were their first customers and maybe their only customers that day. But they told us all these stories about the trials and tribulations to get to that point. And it was really a really beautiful story about how there was a lot of things that they had to do to get to that point. And I guess the people who had owned the building before them had wanted to have a restaurant, but the woman had gotten sick, and so they couldn't do it because she got sick and they just couldn't do it. So it felt like they were serving their life purpose. And so that kind of planted some more seeds in my brain. And they closed relatively early at that point because they were on limited hours. And we were like, let's go out. Let's continue celebrating. And so we went out after the dinner to have a celebratory beverage. And that's when we ran into somebody who I kind of knew from town, because I like to, support local businesses. So I kind of recognized them, and they were like, hey, I'm going to lose my shop if I don't find a roommate. And you should open a store in town so I don't lose my business. And I was like, well, no. And whatever. But then by the end of the evening, somehow they'd worked their magic on me. William and them ganged up on me. And the next day we showed up with tape measures and fast forward 10 years later. But a lot of that, it is a very anxious road to be an artist and to survive off of what you create. I think it's a very, our society is not necessarily set up to support artists. Um, there's been a long stretch of time when I don't have health care. Um, in other places, and they've done studies about this, um, a lot of other populations live longer because they can treat little things early on. And so, but here, um, it's so expensive that generally people wait to go to the doctor until they absolutely can't do it any other way. So they end up, it gets like, and what could have been dealt with preventatively becomes into something where it's not like with my cancer, I could have went when I saw a tiny little spot. Instead I waited until it was like super bad. So and I wasn't gonna even go, to be honest. William was like, dude, you need to take care of that. And so I was gonna be like, I was like, no, it'll go away, it's just a really bad pimple. um and he was like, nah, that doesn't look, that's not, it doesn't look like a pimple. That looks like nightmare time. But he's that much nicer. He's like, if it was me, I was like, dude, that looks like the Twilight Zone. Get yourself to the doctor. And so he forced me to go. And the doctor, my oncologist said, he said, if you would have waited a little bit longer, just a couple weeks longer, it was going into, it hadn't spread past the muscle. There's like, okay, so like there's, when you think about skin, there's like the skin, and then there's like the fatty tissue, and then there's muscle, and then like your organs. So there's like layers. And he said that if I had waited a little bit longer and it had breached the muscle wall, it would have metastasized into my organs, and I would have been dead within probably less than a year, because it was so close to like my heart and lungs and everything else. So, anyways, if you see any suspicious spots, you should get them checked out. Don't do the suntan beds. Wear sunscreen, wear sunblock, and wear your floppy hat. And people may make fun of you, but better that they make fun of you than you have to go through all that. So, anyways, long story. Um, Sometimes you have to, ratchet up the anxiety a little bit so that you can, do what you need to do and serve your life purpose. And it's not for everybody, having a small business is really, really, really hard. And I cannot stress that enough. It's super, super difficult. And if you are expecting it to be easy, then that this is, having a small business is not, it's not for you, because I can tell you that there are way easier ways of making a living than selling beads. And this is not to discourage you. I'm just being very, very honest with you that that this is not an easy road. And sometimes people think that, oh, it's so fun and so easy, but it's not. There's a lot of work and a lot of stress and a lot of sleepless nights as you're worrying how you're gonna pay everything. But I think in the end, it works out. So yeah. Case of the good thing is that you're doing something you absolutely love. Yep, I agree. I think anything that's really difficult, that if you feel passionate about what you're doing, and you believe in your mission, it makes doing the impossible possible. So if you love what you do, it makes it feel less hard. It's still hard, but it makes it feel less hard. Emily says my mom will be 88. Yeah, it's tricky. Um, because my parents are you know, they are still their own people. I'm not their mom and I'm not their dad, so I can't. I'm not the boss of them, so I can tell them things, and they can either listen to those things or not. So there are times when it's challenging because it'd be easier if they just did what I said. Now I'm starting to channel them as when I was a teenager. But yeah, so sometimes it's hard, but it is what it is. Cases, it can be a series of tasks. In cases, long-term planning. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we're doing now that seem kind of I don't know what the right word is, but they seem a little bit frivolous, maybe. But I'm doing a lot of things that sometimes people would be doing when they're just starting their careers. Like when they get out of school, they do certain things, and they do residencies and they do things like that. And I'm kind of working backwards in a way, in that I built up a career and then am now going back and investing in my education. But I kind of feel like this is a long-term planning strategy where, I'm building relationships that I didn't have before, for one. I'm learning new things that I didn't know and will hopefully be able to utilize for my entire life, which is another thing. And I know that sometimes when I'm like, oh, I want to take this class, people are like, oh, he's just taking classes, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't he know enough? When he's going to actually put that to work? But I feel like when you invest in yourself, especially with education, you can't, there's such a stigma, especially in this country, about higher education. Like either you're all for it or you're against it. And especially recently, there seems like this move that higher education is bad. And I don't necessarily think it's bad. I do think that the system is sometimes problematic because there aren't those regulatory kind of there's no oversight on those. So sometimes they do enact very predatory kind of um, things, policies that take advantage of people who are really vulnerable. And that I don't agree with. And I'm one of those people that got really taken advantage of. And we only just recently got my student loans settled, and it took over 20 years to do that. And people are like, well, if you do it, then you should be able to pay for it and whatever. Yeah, but you know what? When you don't know what compound interest is, and you sign a thing that says that you're going to pay the money back, you think you're going to pay the money back, but then you don't realize that you'd be dead in the ground before you actually pay everything off. Um, like when I took out a loan, I thought when you took out a loan, maybe there was some interest and you'd have to pay a little bit extra. But I didn't know that when you're repaying student loans, for example, not to go off on this little diatribe, but if you defer any payments, or if you miss a payment or anything like that, what ends up happening is that you go into compound interest. So you end up paying only the interest. So all of your payment that you make only goes towards paying the interest. So the actual principal, the money that you took out, never goes down. It's only the interest that gets paid. And that interest rate, especially if it's a variable interest rate, can go, one day is 10%, next day is 30%. So you never know. And it can be very hard if you don't have money to be able to knock it out really quickly. So anyways, I think that anything that you can do to better yourself and learn more and is super good. But yeah, all right. Kate says, love your videos, so informative. Do you teach at Touchstone? I don't teach at Touchstone. I'm a board member of Touchstone. So I just take classes there and make decisions. I think one day maybe, if they'll have me. But right now, they have such an incredible, the instructors that they bring in are world renowned, and so I don't know, I would feel out of my league teaching there. But yeah, William says we both do it to ourselves, but if you don't push, you never go further. Susan says, be grateful you will be able to continue. I had to retire because I was no longer able to do my job. I worked 12 hours a day for years just so I knew I could retire comfortably. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where you never know what's going to happen. And I think it's hard, there aren't always those safety nets built in. So it's a very difficult thing to be, basically alive. Marianne says it's definitely better to take a risk now than later. Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things where since we've started our business, we've constantly been reinvesting into our business. So hopefully we get to the point where we get what's called a return on investment. And we are super lucky. I'm standing in one of the things that we've worked really hard for, and it's the fruit of our labor, which is still laboring. I'm so tempted to take you on a tour, but I'm gonna hold off until our takeover day next week, because there are some things that I want to finish before I show you around. But I think it'll be really fun. There's a lot of big changes that have happened at the cottage since we last took a tour. And if you go onto our Patreon, which I'll try to find that really quick, for Star Cottage Studio, even if you don't subscribe to one of the tiers, because there are different tiers that you can subscribe to, we do free updates there about what we're doing at the cottage. And that's probably the place that I update the most about what we've been doing at the cottage. So if you go to that, you can definitely subscribe, and that helps us out. But if not, you can still see what we've been doing. And one thing I will say is, if you do plan on subscribing to our Patreon, wait a couple days until the 1st. And the reason why is they bill every month, regardless of how much time is left in the month. So there are a couple people, and I've seen them do this, as they release all of their content the week before the end of the month, and so that way they double dip that way. So sometimes if you put it on like an auto charge, then it will automatically charge. So just wait a couple days if you're going to subscribe with us, and then that way you don't have to pay twice for for one thing. I probably shouldn't say that. I probably should be like, yeah, go sign up now, and then it would be like so awesome. But I don't like to waste money, so I try to help people not waste money either. Mary, oh, I already said that. Case is risk versus reward. No roach equals zero reward. I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing that if you don't risk it, you don't get a reward, which is true. Rebecca says, my husband says once he dies, he won't have to worry about retirement. Yeah, we're in that boat. But I think it's one of those things where even now, I'm not able to do what I used to do. I could stay up for days at a time and crank workout. I can't do that anymore. I still push myself pretty hard, but I just can't do that anymore. So with that knowledge, I kind of have to make concessions and strategize how I can keep working, but still get money, but not have to work as hard. William says, we both do it to ourselves, but if you don't push, you'll never go further. I think that went to our YouTube. Michelle says, hey, Andrew and William. Kay says, let me try that again. Risk versus reward. No risk equals zero reward. Okay, that makes sense. Don says, I fantasize about that sometimes too. Yeah, I think it's a challenge sometimes, especially if you're self-employed. There were times when I worked in the restaurant industry, and I worked with people who, when they clocked out, they didn't worry about the business. Me, of course, I'm like, how can I help the business so that I have a job to come back to? So maybe even if I did have a regular job, it wouldn't be good. Like, yeah, I would still be doing stuff. I don't know. Don says, but I haven't worked for someone else for so long. I'll probably be a horrible employee. I think about that sometimes too, because I've been so set in my ways and my scheduling that I just don't know. But as I've been working with different groups and organizations, I realized that we get a lot done. Like when we have a goal and a mission, we put it into action right away. Which I realize that doesn't always happen in the outside world. And sometimes the outside world, you have meetings about meetings. And I was like, so like what are we gonna do? Like how like we talked about this already. Let's do it. So I do think that you know that we have more going on than we think we do. So Rebecca says, OMG, that's a lot for a young man to go through. Yeah, it was hard times, but sometimes hard times, that's when you're kind of tested, I guess. And you can, hard times sometimes shape us. So without those things, I don't think that we would be where we are right now. So, yeah. And says, you have to know what kind of a person you are. I'm a 9-to-5 person, and that works for me. Then you and Allegory Gallery help support and make my personal creative time possible. Yeah, I think it's you have to definitely know what kind of person you are. One of our friends, they are really good about compartmentalizing their work-life balance. Like when they're at work, they work really, really hard, but as soon as they're done, and they don't even think about it until, the next day or whenever they have to go in again. And if you can do that, then that's like a superpower, I think, in my mind. In my mind, I'm always fixated on what I'm doing. So like I can't sleep and I start researching things and I start planning and plotting. And so, that's not for I guess I don't know. It's not for obviously it's not for everybody. Um, Marianne says, "Ah, what a guy." Yeah, William's a good one. William says, "Yeah, I don't think either of us would be good at that full time either." Um, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder about that because like I see some, and maybe this is just like the allure and deception of social media, but like there are people who work for like these big creative companies like Anthropology and stuff, and it looks like really like a lot of fun, and like they have their lunch rooms and they're like staged perfectly with all this food that is like made by a chef, and it just looks like fun. Like their corporate culture looks very different than other places. But that was pre-pandemic when I was seeing people like one of our customers. She was one of the higher ups at Anthropology, and uh when she would show pictures of her workplace, I'd be like, this is like my dream. It's like awesome. You have all these like creative people buzzing around doing things and living their best lives on Instagram pretty much. Yeah, so but that could be the grass is greener on the other side. Harry says, "Hey, Andrew and all. Howdy, Harry." Susan says, "I work for the government for 25 years. Great employer and great benefits. Thank goodness. I was fortunate I would be living in my car if not for that." Um, well, we'd clear out the garage so you have a place to stay, Susan. So don't worry about that. No, but Susan used to be um, our mail carrier. So that's how I got to know her, is because she would deliver all of our packages. And hopefully we're nice. I always wonder about that. Like sometimes like we had our split system delivered and I wonder if the FedEx guy was like these people, and then like because it was super heavy, it was so heavy that the pallet that was delivered on broke underneath all of the weight. So I wonder if people are, if I try to be nice and like, I don't make cookies during the holidays because I'm too busy. But I usually try to buy homemade cookies to give to the people, and then like slip them a 20 or something so that they, for all their hard work. But hopefully, I don't know. And says, "I hate that healthcare in this country is tied to employers. It's a real problem." Yeah, I think I think uh, there. I think in some places they value their people as like their priorities are different. And so sometimes, and this is not to say, well, I'll backtrack on it. So, yeah, some places are very key in understanding where their role is. So, some places, like in Japan, for example, they have what are called living treasures. And so they realize and recognize that these people who are doing a traditional craft or whatever are super important. There's a wonderful, wonderful documentary that National Geographic did probably 20 years ago. It's been a long time, maybe 30 years, maybe more than that. But they did it, and it's about national treasures in Japan. And you know, the country helps them, like subsidizes their lives and make sure that they have places to show their work, and facilitates it so that they can pass that knowledge on further, which I think is such a cool thing. Like, as an artist, I've been in both sides of the camp where it's been a benefit, definitely, especially for my own personal things. But there's a lot of social stigmas about it. And like I sat on the advisory committee for the comprehensive plan for the county. And so they had a really diverse cross section of people from the county, and they were talking about different things. And, they represented different facets of small businesses and economy and whatever. And when I told people that I was an artist, instantly they had these assumptions that I was not good at math, for one, which is maybe true, maybe not true, because you know, I can work a sale out in my brain like nobody's business. But they had these certain things in mind. They're like, oh, that's why. And I think that there's a lot of times when artists or creative people are thought of in a certain way, and sometimes that's kind of true um, because you're sometimes those stereotypes and generalizations are built on actual, like, there's so many people who fall into this, but also there's a lot of mythology around creative people, I believe. And there's a lot of times when people are like, oh, well, you have to suffer for your art. I hate that, because I don't think you have to suffer for your art. There are lots of really wonderful creative people who live very balanced, happy, fulfilled lives. Um, and they're not, cutting off their ears and drinking poison and different things like that. But those are the stories that people, they like these, the when you shine up all your hurts and lay them bare, kind of thing. um Susan says, I had skin cancer. I thought it was an age spot. Yeah, so definitely everybody, I hate to sound like a PSA, but do your self screenings and uh, take care of yourself. Rebecca says, I had to talk my son into going into urgent care when he had chest pains. Ended up being a blood clot in his lung. Well, I'm glad you were there to help him, because otherwise, that's no good. I remember reading a book called A Separate Piece, um, back in the day, John Knowles, and one of the main characters got the blood clot, and that was the end of his story. So that's a good thing that you were there to help. Sandra said, thank God you didn't wait. Yeah, that I really feel fortunate that um, I'm with somebody who cares about me and has been, the voice of reason. For me, I grew up with not a lot of money, and so um, my goal is never to get into a position where we are in that same situation. So, like, I never want to be hungry again. So that's one of those things where, not like hungry as in like, oh, I could eat, but like hungry is like you don't have any money to buy groceries, kind of thing. And when I was in art school, there were some pretty exasperating times, and even like with my parents, that we didn't always get along when I was growing up, and there was a lot of stuff going on in our family that was really challenging. Um, and so there was a lot of conflict, but as much as I want to, as there was that conflict, and sometimes it was really hard. My parents always made sure that we had food in our house, and it may have not have been like gourmet or anything, but there was always something to eat. So, but later after that, I started to really appreciate what my parents did for me, um, because like there were times that it was hard to make ends meet, and so I never want to get into that position. And so oftentimes I will push myself incredibly hard, past really anything healthy, but at least William's there to help. Every once in a while I'll be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. don't go too wild and force yourself into the early grave. And so glad you ended up going to the doctor when you did. Yeah, me too. William says, especially doing it with a person you love, mixing work and life can be hard. Um, yeah, I think it is a challenge too, because this happened a lot when we were early on in our business. We didn't really have clearly defined roles in our business. And for a long time, like I just did everything. And William, he would come and help out on the weekends and did the back of the house numbers and stuff. But when he would come in, he would like make comments, and I would get so angry about those comments because like I was like, on the verge of a breakdown, and then here goes somebody gonna poke at me. So I early on it was really hard. I think now we're getting to the point where we try to communicate better, and also those roles are a little bit more well defined. So, like, one of the most common things we hear about nowadays is they're like, "Oh, where's Andrew? He used to be here all the time, and then he's never here anymore at the shop." And that's 100% true. I used to be there every day, and now I'm there hardly ever. And I think that's hard sometimes, but it's also nice because, we're finally in a position where we have people that we can trust. And also with William, that's like his domain now. And I've had to let go of that so that we could grow as a business, and not be so hypercritical of everything. Because believe it or not, yeah, especially if you look at my studio, which is like super messy right now. Um, I in the store, I like things to be a certain way, and so like I remember going in there, and then like I was making like this list of judgments, and that's not really good, especially when you're trying to have a relationship with somebody at the same time. Um, Sandra says, having a small business is not for the faint of heart. I agree. Anne says, yeah, it's not for me. I put myself in the role of supporting small businesses instead of running one. And I think that's good. I think especially if people know that they're helping. I don't know if we're always good about telling people this, but we're so grateful for the people who allow us to do what we do. I try to make it a point to show and say how much we appreciate people, just because I didn't always have that growing up. Um, so if you're out there and you're watching this, thank you. I can't say that enough. Thank you so much for being a part of our lives and for allowing us to do what we do, because we couldn't do it without you. So we really appreciate it. Michelle's, I love how much you share. Some people do, some people don't. Some people are like, well, when are you going to do the craft part? But I feel like sometimes it's good just to talk. And usually William gets to do the chatting days, and I'm like, let's do a craft, and we still might do a craft even though this is like 10 hours long. We might still do something, but I'll get to that once I get to the bottom of the comments, which I haven't even gotten to. Susan says, I commend any small business. I could not do it. It's really hard. William says, and we thank you for it. And yeah, thank you. Michelle says, it helps us out. William says, if you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please help us out and subscribe here. Let me put up the banner for the YouTube. Yeah, so that's another thing that we've been thinking a lot about is about YouTube. We had a goal of reaching 100 subscribers by the end of March. We probably are not going to make that goal. But even though we're not going to make that goal, I don't think, unless something happens. I don't know. I would say that I'd like take my clothes off and like flex and stuff, but I think that would make people unsubscribe more than to subscribe. But like sometimes you see these fitness models on like Instagram and they have like 10 posts, but they're all like half naked doodah posts. And so they have like 150,000 followers. And then like I spent like months on a project and I have like not 150,000 followers. So anyways, but so like with YouTube, it's, you know, we're seeing a lot of people who are getting flagged by the algorithm. And, you know, I sometimes wonder if people aren't reporting us and other people, um, because it seems like there's a certain group of us who are getting flagged a lot more than others for stuff that, you know, uh, is very nominal. So, anyways, I'm not going to go too much into it. What I am going to say is that if you did subscribe, thank you so much. We appreciate your subscription and your support. You know, that's one of those little things you can do that doesn't cost any money that helps our business. If you haven't, please consider it, because once we get unlock certain things there, we're going to be doing more content there. So if you want more content, then that's a great way of doing it. It's a way of saying, hey, I want some more, and we can do that. Dawn says, I have to go. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us, Dawn. Marianne says, lifelong learning keeps us motivated. I agree. Sarah says, not for everyone. The basic education requirements aren't the best for many. Yeah, I think that that's another thing that we're starting to see in this country, particularly, is that especially for people who have disabilities um, or are neurodivergent, or you know, they're working with whatever kind of way, and they're put into a system where there are certain benchmarks and people may learn in very different ways. So like somebody may be like a musical prodigy, but they may not be good at, you know, history, and you know, they're penalized for that. But then they are, you know, savants at math, but you know, don't, you know, those things that they're really good at aren't always explored. So or they're penalized because of that. I remember being in a class one time and I was paying attention, but I was also doodling as I was paying it in class, and the teacher lost their SHIT on me and was super mad. They actually picked up the drawing and ripped it up. Um, and you know, for me, when I'm drawing or when I'm kind of doodling, it's a way that I'm processing information, and it may seem like I'm not paying attention when in fact it's actually helping me pay attention. um, and so there's a lot of expectations, I feel like, when you know, there are certain things where people expect you to act a certain way, and if you don't act that certain way, then you're not fulfilling those expectations, and people get super frustrated. But so I do think that the system's not always set up, at least currently, for everybody. But you know, Susan says, and get your mammograms and colonoscopies. I can't stress that enough. One of our friends um, passed away recently from colon cancer. And so if you, you know, it's something that had they caught it earlier, they might have been able to do something. So definitely go out there and take care of your health if you can. Marion says, our student loans in Canada don't work that way, which that's awesome. You know, I see people in other countries and they're like, I'm working on my fifth doctorate, and I'm like, how? Are they like independently wealthy? Are they Rockefellers? And then they're like, no, my parents are poor farmers, and I'm still doing this. And I was like, how? Here, you would never be able to do that. Susan says, I went to college at Seton Hill and St. Vincent for business because my mom gave me no choice. I graduated and ended up being a letter carrier and was so happy. I feel like my mom and dad wasted money. I don't necessarily think that any kind of education is wasted. I think that, you know, in some way, like if you feel that way, then maybe, but because you would know your own life better than I would. But I do think that all these experiences enrich us and inform us, and maybe you don't necessarily see that direct kind of correlation, but I think you know, nothing is really wasted when it's meant to empower and encourage, I think. And said there can also be a real divergence between what you thought you'd be making versus what you actually make, like going to law school but never becoming a practicing lawyer. Those loans are hard to pay off, just to piggyback off your diatribe. Yeah, 100%. Like, especially in this country, they're like, oh, you're 10 years old? What are you going to be when you grow up? And then you're like, well, I remember I did a project. They asked us what we wanted to grow up to be, and I was like, I want to be a psychic and look into a crystal ball and know the future. And they were like, no. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, those are called con artists, and you definitely don't want to be a con artist. So that's a no, 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 no. Um, and so the I had to redo the assignment. I was like third grade or second grade or something crazy like that, and uh, and so I think I picked like firefighter because you know that's you know the person next to me picked that, and they got a good grade on their project, and so I wanted a good grade. So, but I think nowadays it's kind of funny because we're doing a lot of what's called trend forecasting, and a lot of it is very esoteric in the way that you're predicting the future based on information that you have. So, nani boo boo to those people who said I wasn't going to be able to look into my crystal ball and tell the future, because I feel like I do that every day with our small business. Um, and so glad you chose a career you enjoyed. So important. Terry says American healthcare helps no one, especially when facing a difficult diagnosis. For people living paycheck to paycheck, things get real super fast. And that's true. When I got told that I had cancer, they kind of slipped me a thing and they're like, here you go, here are your results. And I was like, what does this mean? And they says, oh, well, it's a carcinoma. And I was like, so what does that mean? And so they had to, if I didn't ask questions, like, you know, I wouldn't have known. So, anyways, I mean, they did a really good job. And obviously, I'm still alive, and it's been over 10 years now. But yeah, there were some times when like they would call me up and they'd say, oh, we have to give you your diagnosis in person, and you'd wait and you'd be so stressed out. And then you get there and then they're like, oh, you're fine. And then I was like, dude, you could have just said that on the phone and saved me the hassle for one of driving here and waiting all day. But also, I don't know. I just feel like there sometimes people would get lost in that, like the human aspect gets lost. And I understand, like sometimes the system is overwhelmed and you have to do things a certain way, and that's not a reflection on those caregivers, because I know that they're doing the best they can with what they can do. So I'm definitely not saying anything bad about them. Diane is excited for the tour. Hopefully, we'll have good weather so that the daffodils that we planted will be in bloom. William says, here's the Patreon, Star Cottage Studio. He posted that on YouTube as well. That turned out Allegoria. William said, Terry B, you're not kidding at all. It's a disaster for most people. Marianne says, yeah, all I can say is yay for provincial healthcare system. Michelle says, I use Keck. When I can't sleep, I use YouTube for ideas too. Sandra says, me too. Emily says, I read that too. Terry says, I know, so sad. I am happy you have YouTube already in use. Oh, good. Marion says, work study or apprenticeships are good for some. I definitely agree with that. And I think that that's something that is not necessarily utilized or valued in the same way. When I sat on the comprehensive plan committee, advisory committee for the comprehensive plan, one of the things we talked about was an advocacy for vocational training, because a lot of places, they don't have the population of skilled workers to be able to fill those needs. So those jobs are sent elsewhere. However, if you do have a population that knows a specific trade or skill, you can build on that. And I don't think people always realize how you can live a good life and not go to college. You can, there's a lot of people who, like in my generation, if you didn't go to college, they kind of saw you as a failure, because we were promised that if you went to college, then you would get a good job and you wouldn't have to worry, and that was the way. I think nowadays people are starting to realize that there are many different paths, and that they're not there's no one way really. Like my niece Azalea, she is not really interested in going to college. Like she just doesn't want to go. And I mean, I think she's planning to go uh, to community college here and there to pick up different classes. But she's like, I don't want to go in student loan. I don't want to go into debt going to school. And I already kind of know what I'm going to want to do. And if I don't know, then I can always go to YouTube or, find another way and learn that way. And, that takes a lot of courage, because like if I told my parents that I didn't want to go to college even though we didn't have any money, they would have been like thunderstruck. They would have been like, you're ruining your life and you're never going to get anywhere and nobody's going to ever hire you and you're going to be a complete failure. um, and I think that that's just the thing, is just like generationally we're told certain things, and you know so I think it's Azalea is super brave for following her own kind of counsel and wisdom, and I always send her different things I think she would like and enjoy. And yeah, so Susan says, for sure, I've had breast cancer 2 times. Well, hopefully you don't get it another time and that you're doing well and on the road to recovery. Marianne says, don't think all psychics are con artists. Yeah. Um, I think it's interesting when people put their expectations on you and when there's something that is not definable. And that may seem weird, but even with the creative process, like people say, there's a lot of misconceptions about that as well. But I feel as though there are things that, there, even though there's a kind of an amorphousness to it, there is a structure within that. And so yeah. Sarah says, my mom paid for my classes at the junior college in California to get my AA in liberal arts. Told me I'd need to get scholarships or grants to transfer to state college. Didn't go into debt, but I ended up working for the railroad and not going on to get that 4-year degree or going into debt. Yeah, I think that's great. Your path better than your mom. I got lots of scholarships and grants, but I still went into debt. So I don't know if that's good or not. No, it's not good. I know that wasn't good. But anyways, Susan says, I'm happy I graduated from college, but I would have just been as happy going straight into a career. I went to private schools my whole life, and that really didn't make me happy. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always, especially in hindsight, you can see where things would have went differently had you made different choices. And for me, I think that, some people thrive in that environment, and other people don't. And some people really enjoy it and other people don't. Like some of my friends are super academic and that's what they do. That their life is a life of academia, and they know that they're studying and researching things that are very niche specific. And I think it's wonderful that they're able to do that, but I know that not everybody could do that. Like if I had to research, well, I don't know, maybe I could do it. But, when I got out of college, I wanted to get an MFA, but I couldn't afford it. I was already kind of hocked up to my eyeballs in student loans, and I probably couldn't have gotten into, I could have gotten into, I maybe could have gotten into an MFA program, but I don't think I could have paid for it. So I don't think I would have been able to go. So for me, it was really important for me to one day kind of invest back in myself with education. And the pandemic, if it did anything, it kind of crystallized a lot of ideas and kind of clarified things. And so that's one thing I knew I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to go back and learn more and devote more time and energy to learning about my craft and investing in that. But I'm kind of in a position now where, I still have to work, so I can't just go to an MFA program for 2 to 3 years and that's all I do. So understanding that I can't completely, if we did that, then it would change a lot of stuff. So knowing that, I've been able to explore different ways of learning that are maybe not so traditional or are different. So a lot of things like with contemporary craft, I've been taking a lot of classes there. I took classes at the Center for Metal Arts and taking retreats at Touchstone, and even local classes at little studios. I've been really lucky that I've been able to do that. And so that's been good and has helped me do what I wanted to do. Michelle says they can charge more for a visit than a phone call. As for if they're for the medical thing. Yeah, that's one thing also. I know that this is a different and kind of the same conversation, but a different kind of facet of that is it's always super good to look over your bill. Um, because I got, when I went in, there was, like somebody said that I had, like I went and I said, "What's this mean?" And they were like, "Well, that's a consultation." The consultation was some dude came in and read my chart real fast, looked over it, and signed his initials on my side. And that was considered a consultation. That was $2,000 for something that happened in less than 3 minutes. I got charged for hydration, something or another. It was half a can of ginger ale, $80 for half a can of ginger ale. They said I had to drink the whole can before I could leave. Um, and I also was provided, I forget what it was, nutritional supplements or something like that. And it was a half, a small bag of animal crackers. So, yeah. So when I went for the way that we ended up having to deal with this, and supposedly they inflate all these charges because they know people are not going to be able to pay, which is kind of like a catch-22 to me. And it's like, if you made it as affordable as possible, then people would be able to pay. More people would be able to pay. But if you make it super expensive, then only some will be able to pay full price, and others will definitely not going to be able to pay. And so, anyway, so we ended up having to appeal the hospital. And my story, like I said, I used to have a blog. And so I wrote about it, and a lawyer contacted me, and they helped me go to the hospital and talk to them and negotiate down my bill. So we went from, I think my bill in total was $90,000 out of pocket that I had to pay. And after we negotiated it down, it went down to 20,000. And there were a couple fundraisers going on for me, and that was about 10,000 that we were fortunate enough to raise because people were so generous and were super kind. So that 10,000 went towards that, and then we took the rest of that 10,000. We paid that off in the year that from when I got sick to right before we started the store, which is another reason why when we started the store with very little money. We started the store with 10,000, and the only reason why we had that much money at that point after having paid off all those medical bills was because William, when he was in New York, worked for Apple and had stock. So he cashed in all his stock, and that's how we started the store. In hindsight, if he would have just held on to that stock a couple more years, we would have been rolling in money probably, because that stock ended up skyrocketing. And then there's the thing where it divides off and then it's worth more. But we did what we had to do when we had that. So, and I think in the long run, our initial investment of 10,000 has turned into something that is pretty amazing. I mean, I feel really lucky to have the life I have. So I think it was worth it. Terry says, I think there is a big movement now to follow your own star and create your path instead of being choreographed. I think that's a beautiful way of saying that. Susan says, I admire Azalea, so talented. You do what you feel is right for you. My mom gave me no choice. It worked out well for me, but that was 30 plus years ago. Sarah says, it's still completely ridiculous. They charge you that much. Yeah. So, yeah. It was at first when they told me how much it was, because I was in I had tons of student loans at that time too. I said, well, you might as well let me die. And they were horrified. They were like, what do you mean? I said, well, because I don't have $80,000 in my bank account. So you might as well let me die. And so I was super stressed out about all of that. And, that's not maybe necessarily the best thing when you're trying to recover. Stress can do things to your body and especially to your mindset. So when, at the time, I thought, it was kind of, that was more shocking than when they told me I had cancer. I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to just throw myself in the river because I don't have that and I don't see any way of me making that. So, because at that point, I was freelancing for a bunch of different companies and I was doing tech editing and worked freelance. So, I don't even know how much I made. I made, super low because like I'd get paid what $25 a project if I made a pair of earrings. And so I made money selling stuff and I made money freelancing, and I worked for trade shows for my family, but I did not, that I didn't have any money then. So and we don't have a lot of money now, but we have significantly more than what we had in the early times. I mean, that was super hard, but anyways. All right. So I've reached the bottom of the comments and we've been talking for a long time now. Hopefully you all have been enjoying our little conversation. I think maybe it'd be fun to do some kind of project. I really haven't prepared anything since since we have been so busy lately. I am working on a bunch of new kits, little inspiration kits. If you missed the first part of this video, then you may have missed the part where I talked about how we're in the process of buying out a line of metal components. So we're going to be doing a lot of fundraising soon. And by soon, I mean in like a couple hours. So I haven't really had a chance to work out anything, but I think maybe we should do something, I feel like I always like to do something. Let's see. I've been on a kick for doing metal stuff, so maybe we can do. Let's do maybe a creative challenge for whoever's watching still. How about that? So maybe what we'll say is we'll come up with 3 things and you can tell me. So pick a color and maybe pick a color, maybe pick a theme and what I'll make. So earrings or a bracelet or a necklace. And so color, theme, and what it is. So, and you can play along too if you want to do this. Terry says, I'm glad you didn't jump in the river and got your treatment and managed to negotiate the payments down and ultimately pay off the bill. Me too. That was super stressful. Cynthia, my sister of Green Girl Studios, it's her takeover day. If you're gonna go live, Cynthia, if you're gonna go back live again, let me know and I'll jump off so that people can watch you, because I've already been talking. But so Cynthia says teal and earrings. Okay, let me think about that. So she voted teal and earrings. Anybody else have any prompts that they'd like to see me tackle? Also, I probably should get a chair. Cynthia says we can go live together. Sure, I'm happy to do that. I'm gonna have William pick me up a coffee if he's still watching, because I'm at the cottage, which is the land of no food and drink, apparently. Lorraine says teal and earrings. Terry says spring. All right, so I think that'll be fun. We'll do some earrings then. I'll flip this camera around. Terry says, I love teal and purple together. Y'all are on a roll for the teal. All right, let me flip this around. You can see my mess. Camera, flip it. That's one thing that I wish they would make this easier, is the setup. All right. So y'all like, oh my word, look at his mess. No. All right. I see another. Lorraine says teal and earrings. Terry says, I love teal and purple together. Michelle said spring. All right. So how about this? You can see my pop socket. I have to take this off when I put my phone in. And you can see my ring. This ring is from Cynthia. Do you have any of these left in your Etsy shop? I get people and they're like, where did you get that? And I'm like, my sister made it. And then they're like, can she make me one? I'm like, yeah, sure. All right, so I've got my bench block. And let's see. Here are two of those little cactus pendants that we made before. These were in the online store. I don't know if we have any left, but if we do, or if we don't, I can make more. But I'm just sanding the edges right now. And getting that prepped up so that it's nice and not janky and not going to cut your neck throat. And then what I'm going to do now is get my Identi pen, which I love. This is an Identi pen. I call it a Sharpie on steroids. And it's a really wonderful thing because not only do you get this side, which is a thicker side, but you also got a smaller side. And these are the kind that you would sign like your driver's license with, and it doesn't come off. I discovered these when I was doing kind of etching. So these were super useful. This doesn't come off the same way that Sharpie comes off sometimes. So I love them. I'm going to find my top for this and make a mark of where I want the dot. Now, I've done this so many times I can eyeball it, but I do think it's always important to have a reference point when you're making holes, just because then you'll know, and if your hands move around or whatever, it's not going to be problematic. All right, so this is a riveting hole puncher and riveter, and I love this thing because I can take this with me and I can punch holes all day long, and I don't have to worry about having a drill with me or a Fordham. Like, I love my Fordham, but I also like to be able to do this on the go. So right now I'm just twisting this around, and yeah. All right. So I've successfully punched holes on the tops of these pendants, these copper pendants. And I'm going to sand down the hole on the back, and that way there is Cynthia says, I like the hand punch. I like hand punches too, but I like this because every time I've had a hand punch, I've broken them. So I like the twisty one, because then it doesn't break. All right, so I've sanded these down a little bit, and I'm just going to go over the surface just a little bit, and that's so it creates a tooth on the metal. This is pretty aggressive sandpaper. It's 320. So it is going to scuff up your metal just a little bit. And I think it's important to have a little bit of tooth when you're working on, when I'm going to add color to my metal. So there's that. All right. So I had these pendants. These ones are, when you get these in our online store, the pendants already come pre-punched, so you don't have to worry about that. But I just did that. And in theory, I have a file somewhere where I was going to file the hole a little bit rounder. Here we go. So there's a needle file. And I'm just going to go in there and twist that around. And that's going to open up the hole just a little bit, but also take off any burrs that might have happened when I was popping out the hole. All right, so there's this. I think I'm going to add a couple more holes, actually, since I have these. So again, I'm going to precisely eyeball where I'm going to put the hole. And then I'm just going to punch those out real quick. So how are you all doing out there? Hopefully you've had a good start to your week. If you're still watching, let me know where you're watching from. I know where Cynthia's from. She's in Asheville. We've had a good week so far. Busy. Tomorrow we had, originally I was going to go to lunch with some of the other board members at Touchstone, but that got canceled. But we do have a meeting in the morning with a rep. So hopefully we'll find some cool things there. I don't know how much we'll be able to get since we're planning to do this buyout, but yeah, that should be interesting. And then in theory, one of our friends is going to be passing through. So hopefully we'll be able to get together for a little bit of a chat. And then our local museum is doing a screening, a virtual screening. The Westmoreland Museum is doing a screening of, I believe, the new Toni Morrison movie. So I kind of want to watch that. That's in the evening. But there's also Metalworks, which I just finished their symposium, their spring symposium. They're doing a sharing thing. So you like bring something that you've worked on and then talk about it. So I might do that too. So we'll see. Originally, we were planning to have my friends stay, but I don't think that's the plan anymore. Because then I got super busy with that stuff with Touchstone, and then that got canceled. So it might be too late to change that now. Lorraine is in Massachusetts. Where in Massachusetts are you? Because I'm thinking of going up to the Metalworks is in Massachusetts. So I'm thinking of going up there and checking it out when I go up to Providence in June. So I'm just sanding the backs right now and getting rid of any kind of burrs. Diane is in Ligonier. Hey, Diane. Terry is in Eugene, Oregon. Lorraine says, what kind of metal buyout are you getting? So it's jewelry components, mostly beads. And they are based off of Balinese and Indonesian carvings. So a lot of times, like the carved bees that we have, they are hand carved in Indonesia. And there's a lot of stuff that we sell in the store that's hand carved in Indonesia. So I thought that this would dovetail really well with what we currently offer. All right, so we've got some discs and we've got some holes in the discs. Michelle says Los Angeles, Santa Clarita, near Magic Mountain. Terry says Wisconsin here. All right, so yesterday, if you watched the live, then you may have seen William show off these Patina Paints from Vintage. And these ones, we have some left. These are in a pack. This is verdigris, and this is jade. And so I'm just shaking them up right now so that the colors are thoroughly distributed throughout. And really, this is a good thing if you've got any young people in your life, like if you've got any kids or nieces, nephews, somebody will help you. They can stand here and shake the thing while you're planning your thing. Otherwise, you're going to get a workout. And then here's something to work on so I don't get paint everywhere. And then I'm going to look for something that I've got that's shiny paper. Here's a conference that's coming up soon in the Pittsburgh area. I really want to go, but I don't know if I can afford it. So, yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to go to this, but I really am interested. Lorraine says Metalworks is in Cambridge. I live 22 miles south of Boston. Cool. So you want to look for a paper that has been like UV coated like this, because if you work with a matte paper that doesn't have a coating like this cardboard, your patina paints will soak up into that, and then you won't be able to, it will soak up and dry before you get a chance to work on it. Now, one thing that I like to do when I'm working with these is I like to have a pin with me, because sometimes the nozzles will get closed up and then you don't have a chance to clean them. It will get, if you it's very tempting when you get this, if there's a clog, to squeeze with all your might. But you know what happens if you do that? The pressure builds up and then it pops and then it gets all over your pants. And then, then there's the sad times. So instead of squeezing with all your might, just get a pin and clear the nozzle hole, clean your holes out, and then it will be free flowing again. All right. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this. And like I said, that was got the plug hole is sealed up. So I'm just taking this head pin and opening that hole up a little bit. And if it's being really stubborn, if you angle your wire a little bit, then you can really get in there and scrape away. And you don't need a ton of the, you don't need a ton of the patina. So this one is closed up, but before I put this back in there, I'm going to wipe this off so I don't cross-contaminate, because then you can get one color. Say you're working with red and then you go into the white, then guess what you're going to have is pink. So do yourself a favor and don't cross-contaminate. There you go. All right, so I'm just going to work with one side first, the top here. Now, if you want it to be really good and do this the right way, if you take a little bit of alcohol, like isopropyl alcohol, or rubbing alcohol, you can clean your metal, and that way there's no dust or debris or anything that's going to cause any issues. Now, I'm wiping my brush off here in my not snot rag, I promise. And then get this and work on here. And then I'm just putting this color down on this side first. And then I'm going to go back up and blend this together. Okay. And really, I think we should maybe add another color. Let's see what I got that's open already. Or shook up. All right, and I'm going to wipe this off. I like to work with this with a dry brush because I find if you use water, it can kind of curdle them sometimes. So I try to work with a brush that's dry so I don't have that problem. Sometimes you have to tap the ball or the bottom of the tube so that it releases the ball, and just shake it up real good. And I'm just cleaning out this hole in this opalite color. And then I'm gonna go back on the tops and hit the tops. All right, so I've got this. I'm gonna dab the color on at the top and then hopefully blend it in. And the purple and green makes kind of a gray color, which I like, but that might not be for everybody. And these are going to be all a little bit unique. You know, they're not going to be the same exactly. I can try to get them to match, but they're not going to be exactly the same. And I'm okay with that. You know, some people like everything to be exactly the same. And I kind of, you know, that's nice, I guess. But for me, I like things to be a little bit more organic and free, wild and free. So I'm going to put that in there. So there you go. A little bit of purple and that lovely kind of lavender gray color that you mix from the green. All right. And I'm going to actually hit this with a little bit more of this verdigris, which is kind of a teal color. Clean off my head pin. And get that teal color again. I'm just going to touch that up real quick. Now, one of the things that will really make your patina paints grab onto the surface of the metal, besides adding that tooth, is if you have access to a heat gun or to an oven, this will heat set your patina paints and it will really make them grip on and be a lot sturdier. And by sturdier, I mean the finishes won't be. Sometimes if you scratch it, you can scratch off the paint. So I don't like that to happen when I'm doing it. So I'm going to try to heat set them so that the finish is really sturdy. All right, wipe off the brush before it dries on the brush and becomes impossible to get out. I'm actually going to use a little bit of water to clean my brush. And then I'm going to get the heat gun. And I think it's already plugged in. And I need to clean my heat gun because it's kind of, the holes are kind of plugged up. So it's not running at its full kind of capacity. So every once in a while, you have to clean out the exhaust holes on your blow dryer or heat gun so you don't burn out your gun. Okay, since this is on cardboard, you have to be careful not to heat it up so much that you catch the cardboard on fire. You have to kind of try to make that happen. You know, if you start smelling something that's burning, then stop, obviously. Um, so that should be pretty well set. I've got some head pins, some copper head pins. That's still hot. So whenever I'm doing this, I just kind of test it to make sure that it's not scorching hot, which it still is. So I'm going to let that cool down a second, and then I'm going to get some pliers so that I can bend these head pins. Got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm also going to get some jump rings. These jump rings, these are oval jump rings. So they hang a little bit different, and I'm going to get 4 for each of these. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. All right. So the other thing is I need pliers. Where's the pliers? One of these. And then what else do we need? We need something to string up on those beads. We need beads to string up. So I'm going to run and get some teal beads real fast. So hold on just one moment. All right, so I found these. So I'm just going to make some wire wrap loops or dangles. And before I get into that, I'm going to take sandpaper and hit the surface. Terry asked, could you UV resin over patina paint? Yes, you can. And so I'm just scuffing up the surface just to bring out some of that copper underneath. And that way you can kind of see that peeking through a little bit. When I say that the heat setting really helps, it really has clinged onto the surface. So I'm going kind of aggressively with the sandpaper, and it's still kind of, it's still kind of cooked on. So, I guess it works. All right, so I'm going to open and close these jump rings. Generally speaking, I would use bent nose pliers for this. But I'm also going to put the back, the seam, because these are oval jump rings. So I'm going to put the back of the seam of the oval on the back. That didn't make any sense. So because there's a front and a back to these jump rings and they're not a circle, like a continuous loop, there is a front and a back. So I'm going to make sure that the seam that I'm going to put in lines up on the back. So that way you don't see the seam of the jump ring. If you do, it's not the end of the world. If they're that close to see the seam of the jump ring, then they maybe are a little too close. And let me put another. This hole, I may have put a little bit too far in, which is fine. I'll just use a bigger jump ring for that one. And stylistically, that's fine because that one is kind of separated because it's the top. So that is nice to be able to do that. Anyways, I'll make it dangle a little bit better anyway. So that's nice. All right. So this is kind of the tedious, kind of monotonous part of me just doing the same thing over and over, making sure that the jump rings are closed completely, opening and closing jump rings. So are you all watching anything good? We just finished watching Bridgerton. That was good. I love those Regency period. I love Pride and Prejudice growing up. And so these are kind of like sassy Pride and Prejudice. If you're opposed to the male bun talks, then you may not want to watch that because they do show the man's butts a lot. So, but if you like that, then you might want to watch that. So, you got to do what you got to do. We're also watching on Amazon. They have this, I guess in England, there's a channel called Sky Media or something. And they do a portraiture contest every year. So they do, so we've been watching the different seasons of a portrait painting competition, which is pretty fun, I think. So these ones are a little bit larger jump rings. Sometimes they get kind of a little bit like they want to become friends with each other and get locked up with one another. And Cynthia says, "Is this season of Bridgerton less sexy?" No, it is not less sexy. But I don't know. I think all those people are very pretty to look at, so I don't mind. Um, it's like my, I guess my pervy old lady side. I guess I don't know. All right. So there's that, and then whoop, Lorraine says, "Are you going to enter the contest?" I don't live in England, so no. Um, you have to go there to paint because it's like painting from life. So that would be no. But I might, but I'm not an amazing portrait painter, so I don't know. I thought about one of the things that I could do to raise money for this buyout is that I would do a couple, I would do some quick portraits. I actually have an idea for a website, and I want to call it paintmyportrait.com. And probably somebody is going to run out there and scoop my idea. But basically, people would upload a picture that they wanted painted, and an artist, if they wanted to, could paint it. And then you can like leave a comment on what you made using that picture. I think would be fun. All right, so all I'm gonna do is make some wrapped head pins, dangles. I know I wrap my head pins way different than most people, but I've made probably millions of wire wrapped dangles at this point, and it's not an exaggeration because I used to do um, a um, a bracelet design called the Fuzzy Caterpillar, and each one of those had thousands of um, wire wrapped dangles, and none of them fell off. So it must be sturdy enough for that. It's been years. So, and just um, because when I do it, I do it a little bit differently. There's somebody they were saying that it's like a cigar roll. The only thing about doing it like this is you do have to be careful not to squeeze too hard, because if you squeeze too hard, it can dimple the top of your loop. And so that's less good. You don't want to, because that does make a weak spot. But no, if you don't do it, then, or if you don't squeeze too hard, then it won't have that brittle spot. But yeah, I think if it was here, I might apply. You know, I think though, a lot of times people are like, how do you get all these like things, like all these good things happening? And it's mostly just because I put myself out there. Um, you know, you can't win a contest unless you enter the contest. So I know there's a lot of people who get bashful about entering contests, but you know, if you are, then you'll never win if you don't try. 100% you'll never win. Um, you know, there's a lot of times when there are a lot of things that I've entered that we haven't won. But there are a lot of things that we have won, and that's merely because I've put myself out there and applied. Um, so I always recommend people to try as much as possible and enter as many things if they're interested in that, because if you don't put yourself out there, then you won't get it. Um, and I think that's like a common thing. Like I was talking to somebody who came in the shop once, and they said, "Well, I just don't think I'm worthy." And then I was like, "Well, you know, that's a different generational trauma talk than, you know, that's a different conversation, you know." Lorraine says, "You never know." I agree. You never know, because sometimes you, um, you could be exactly what they are looking for. Like my brother, he's super talented, but I think when he was gone, because he went missing for 22 years, when he was gone, he got real scared of, um, you know, people learning that he was, you know, living another life or whatever. And so I think that messed with him and his self confidence. So the only way that he would show anything is if he was like grandmaster level. And, you know, that's cool. Like if you can do that and become a master at what you're doing, that's super awesome. But for me, you know, I like to do so many different things. And if I only posted things that I was a master at, I would basically never post anything, because there's so many things that I'm interested in that if I tried to do that where I didn't, you know, I kind of feel also that people are interested in the process, like, especially if they're interested in getting going. They want to see what you kind of went through so that they can, you know, either are rooting you on, or they're trying to plan for their own time doing it. So I don't know. We have very different ideas of what to do. Like he's super talented, but he never shares any of his work. And so, you know, he was complaining that he didn't make any money doing the jewelry stuff. And I was like, well, you know, if you don't put yourself out there, people can't see it. And then if they don't see it, they can't buy it. So, you know, you're disappointed, but, you know, you are in control of that. So, uh, you know, but he's doing urban planning stuff now, so it doesn't matter. Like, I guess you're creative doing that too, but it's different than if you're going to make a living as an artist. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that my dangles are kind of oriented the right way so that when they hang so that these hang straight forward and they are not off to the side. So what I'm doing is grabbing that and just twisting it. And they may twist back, you know, depending on how tightly I wrap these. But at least I'll know that I tried to make them hang the right way. And then, so, I don't know. I think these are fun. I think I might go back over and scuff these up a little bit more aggressively so that there's a little bit more copper peeking through. And then I may go over and kind of oxidize the copper. And then I need to hang ear wires, but I have bags and bags of ear wires, but I don't know if I have any ready, set, go right now. But right now I'm just adding some jump rings. I know that's not the most exciting thing. So teal earrings. Somebody said spring, but I didn't necessarily see that until later. So yeah, I think that's fun. So there you go. And I'll add ear wires after. And that's just adding, slipping these on so it's not like you're missing anything out. In theory, I could make some ear wires, but I've never been really good at that. So I don't want to shame myself by doing that, especially when I have bags of them already made that are professionally made. All right, so there you go. Let me raise up. So how was it? We made some quick earrings, or they will be earrings, and those are fun, right? I think those are fun. I might do something, embellish these later. I might set a rivet or do something. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe I'll set a rivet. We'll see. So these are a quick thing of making earrings. Lorraine says, put them in your online shop. Yeah, maybe. Have to find where the camera is. I need to make some dollar bills, so they will maybe make an appearance there. One thing I'm not super in love with is how kind of glossy this is. So I may hit this with a little bit more sandpaper, and I may mix in a little bit of the matte medium and do a light coating on here. Now, if you are going to, you can spray paint these, and there's a wonderful matte spray finish from Crystal Krylon. And so if you do that, open these little jump rings up and take these off, and then spray it. Because if you spray this while these got these little dingle dangles, your dingle dangles, the coils and stuff, will get all kinds of gummed up, and it will have a less than delightful hand feel on these. So and also, you don't necessarily want to spray your glass with a matte medium unless your goal is to make them semi-frosted. So here are these. These have little eyes on them. I think these are really cool. They're like little protective, maybe they're like the Illuminati things. I don't know what that's called. All Thing Eye, Illuminati Eye. Like on the dollar bill. So I think those are fun. Maybe I'll rivet some flowers or something on here to make it even more festive. We'll see. Anyways, we have been on for a while. Lorraine said to put them in the shop, so maybe we'll do that tonight. Sarah said lots of fun. Thank you. William says they look great. Well, thank you, William. William, can you get me a coffee? Also, I can't figure out how to run the pellet stove. So if you can come here and help me get that going, that would be super great because it's a little bit chilly willy up in here, and I don't like to be cold. Um, Terry said, so pretty. Well, thank you. So after this video is finished, I'll show you what they end up looking on like with the ear wires. I just have to dig around and find them. All right. Well, I will talk to you all later. So thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and maybe I'll see you tonight if I go on with Cynthia. All right. Bye-bye.